first met Kent when he was coaching the University of Victoria. I recognized a coach that was enthusiastic, creative, and absolutely a hard worker. When it came time to create our new provincial team program that was designed to win the gold medal at the Canada Games, we decided to select Kent. Kent was the girls' coach and Al Scott the boys' coach. They created the first all year round provincial team program. Kent went on to win the gold medal at the Canada Games and the silver the next time around. Kent was also incredibly instrumental in doing very well in the Pacific Rim Volleyball Championship. In fact, he has a record. The record is, as far as I know, the only Canadian coach to defeat Japan.
We hosted one in Victoria, and we went down in 1976 to Hilo for one of the tournaments. And I took my family, and my wife noted after 7 days that Kent, who was never known for his sartorial elegance, had been apparently wearing the same gray sweatpants and blue top for 7 days. And my wife said something about that. He says, "Oh, no, I have 7 sets."
Kent Andrews is a highly qualified person to be entered into the Volleyball BC Hall of Fame. Welcome, Kent.
Thank you so much. And John, thank you for going first. I'm really honored, and a lot of other terms that describe that, appreciative, and so on. And I'd be remiss if I did not thank my wife Betty of over 50 years and my son Dale for their support, because I was always on the road. And also, I would like to thank the nomination committee that looked after me, Vic Lindell, Mark Lindell, Ron Green, and Heather Wheatley, and all those others that contributed. It's a real honor, and each one of you, and each time I had a team or practice or something, there's always some individual whose connection I can remember. So my career is really a collection of a lot of wonderful, wonderful people who played volleyball. I was fortunate enough to grow up in Paul River, BC, and when we went to play basketball, volleyball, soccer, whatever it was, we went by fish boat across to Courtenay, or we went by seaplane, 4-seaters, and I continually had to have a paper bag with me. And a couple of treats, I had 2 paper bags because on a couple of occasions we had to come back on the crash boat from the Air Force Base because it was too rough. So I always remember those days, and also in that early day, I remember the ball. I've still got a couple in the basement, and it's sort of a leather, and it's got laces on it. So that was a ball. And also, along with the group that played on Wellington Beach, there was also a fishnet up there that some of the disabled people had, and they played sitting volleyball in that time. It was really an amazing thing, and that gave me a passion for this game, which I didn't get to a long time. I had 2 wonderful physical education teachers, both in their first year in different years. Dr. Glenn Kirshner, who many of you will know from his work in elementary physical education, his first year, and Mr. Brian Upson, although was a basketball coach, took us under his wing and did wonderful things with us. We also played 9-player volleyball, where you had 4 attackers who could not block over the net. And I understand they still have those tournaments in Toronto and San Francisco every once in a while. So it's evolved. You imagine putting nine players on there today. There's not a lot of room in that court. That's why communication, I think, in volleyball was so important. Anyway, when I got a teaching job at S.J. Willis and worked with the boys and girls there, after a few years I was asked to coach the University of Victoria. Don Smith, who was one of my mentors, wanted to go and do his master's degree for administration. And sometimes he actually coached both the men and the women. So another fellow was coaching the girls, and so I coached the men, and that was my introduction. I was a rookie, and I was whipped off to a wonderful Winfield camp for 3 weeks of it, and I think Ron went with me once there in the earlier stages, and my nickname, Winnie the Pooh, comes from my having one of those floppy hats on there, and my general body characteristics, and I was named by Honey Bear by Mr. Val Keller. That's where it comes from. Anyway, I went on to, when Don came back, and actually Don at age 42 was the setter for the University of Alberta. I remember we played them and he beat us. He said, "You shouldn't have beat us," but I couldn't resist. Anyway, then I took my introduction to the ladies for the next 14 years. I learned some interesting things, like always to check the toilet seat because it'd be Vaselined. Always check the doorknob. Always check your beer because it'd be poured out and filled with water. And one of their most infamous times was to plaster all their underwear on the outside door of my hotel room. So there was a lot of off-court things that would end. In Hawaii, which is a very interesting place that I had the privilege of going so many times, there's a couple of stories I'd like to tell you. I remember when Ray Lepp took Harish Dalpatam out to fish in Hilo Bay, and one of them came back very green. Another one was we were at the Black Sand Beach out at Kalapana, and it's like a scene from the moon. And we're going back, and all these police cars are there, and they got all our cars pulled over. I say, "Are you Coach Andrews?" "Yes." "Well, you need to come down to the station. We've had an incident." I thought, oh, God. Got in there, and what had happened is 2 of the women players wanted a souvenir, and they'd taken a license plate, a Hawaii license plate off to keep as a souvenir. Fortunately, it was a rental car, and the couple who were from Florida were very nice, and they didn't press any charges. So there's always these other things to do. When I was at UBC, I worked at Dunbar Community Center, and that's where I first became acquainted with Ray Lepp and the Dunbar K-Leafs. That was wonderful to watch their running roundhouse spin serves, and then a couple of the younger ones then do a dive and catch into the court. It was simply amazing me, and I learned a lot from just watching their practices in those times. What else have I got that I can throw out there? I should have paid attention to John's. I wrote too much. Remember the great snow train trip when in Canada West, when we had to go on the train on a Thursday to Edmonton for the Canada West, and when we got there, we had to play all 5 matches on the one day. And I know that I think Maryland was maybe on a trip. UBC had berths. We didn't have berths. So that was interesting. Another time coming on the Pacific Western, and we're coming into Saskatoon, and we smell this smoke. There's smoke all over the place, and the stewardess, they were called stewardess in those times, said, "There's no smoke." I looked down on the runway, and there's all these yellow vehicles. What does that indicate? Well, they're fire trucks. And on that particular trip, we had a flat tire going back in Edmonton and another one in Cranbrook. So life off the court is pretty exciting sometimes. Anyway, I just want to throw a little humor in there. If you're coaching, you need to be organized. You need to have a lot of humor, a lot of compassion and passion. I'm going to leave it like that, and I'd be remiss if I did not thank my wonderful Paradise Cove women's volleyball team who was here, and they all supported me for the last 25 years. Thank you.